Positive Atheism English Channel. Today I am going to continue the article on an Atheist Manifesto written by an atheist, Joseph Lewis. The use of prayer to cure disease has been responsible for epidemics that have on many occasions almost wiped out the human race. Prayer has had no more effect upon disease than it has upon health. It merely permits the disease to continue its course and increase the suffering of the victim. If priests of all clans were free of disease and immune to death, then there might be some basis for the claim of the religionists. But these men of God are victims of the natural course of life, even as you and I. They enjoy no exemptions. They suffer the same ills. They feel the same sensations. They are subject to the same passions of the body, the same frailties of the mind. They are victims of circumstances and misfortune, and they meet inevitable death just as every other person. They commit the same kind of crimes as other mortals, and especially because of their calling, many are notoriously involved in the embezzlement of church funds. Nor does their calling protect them from the passion of the flesh. The scandalous conduct of many men of the cloth in the reel of more turpitude often ends in murder. That is why there are so many men of God in our jails, and why so many have paid the supreme penalty in the death chair. They are not free from a single rule of life, what others must endure. They likewise must experience. They cannot protect themselves from the forces of nature and the loss of life any more than you can. What they can do, you can do too. Their claims of being anointed and because of God on earth are false and hypocritical. If they cannot fulfill their promises while you are alive, how can they accomplish them when you are dead? Here, where they could demonstrate their powers, how ridiculous are their promises to accomplish them in the hereafter, the mythical abode, which exists only in their dishonest or deluded imagination. The illusions of life are many and varied. Things are not always what they seem to be, and it is well known that appearances are deceiving. That is why it is so difficult for some people to understand the nature of disease and why it has taken man so long to comprehend the true conditions of life. This deception prevails in matters of great importance as well as in matters of little consequence. There is no voice of nature to tell man that which is true and that which is false, not to warn him of the dangers of life. He must find the truth for himself, and only after very bitter experiences. The first piece of deception of man after his so-called mental awakening was his inability to conceive of any scheme of life except from his own primitive concept of limited intelligence. He could not conceive the earth and the universe except as being created, and from his own feelings of revenge, he could not conceive of the suffering of life except as a punishment for some disobedience. Primitive though he be, he did not inflict pain and punishment upon the innocent. This diabolical scheme could only come from a merciful God. As an illustration of this concept of primitive man in this respect is the delusion he experiences when he believes that the sun rises and sets, when as a matter of fact it is the sun which is stationary as far as the earth is concerned, and it is the earth that moves, as Galileo so courageously maintained at the cost of his liberty. There is a delusion that the sun shines and the water falls from the clouds to make the flowers bloom. To the religionist, this is an indication of the beauty in nature. It is nothing of the kind. Poisonous plants and obnoxious weeds are equally nourished by the warmth of the sun and the moisture of the water. Is this then an indication of the ugliness of nature? Certainly not. Both are inevitable consequences of the environment in which they live. It could not be otherwise. Is the hippopotamus one of nature's masterpieces? Is its face and form the perfection of beauty and grace? Would you consider this animal a work of living art if you are responsible for it? And yet, if this beast could talk, it would probably say that its environment was made for its benefit and that its marvelous features, particularly its mouth, was especially designed for its enjoyment, and that its whole body was made in the image and likeness of God. The fact that the hippopotamus has survived these millions of years of the evolutionary process and still thrives today is proof that it is equally as favored by nature as is man. To nature, the blossom of the flowers and the obnoxious weeds are identical, and the fragrance of the one and the stench of the other are equally alike. Both, if they could talk, would boast of nature's preference for them. While, as a matter of fact, both would be wrong. The sun does not shine to bring us its necessary light and warmth without also bringing to light some new burden for our over-troubled hearts to bear, and everything in the universe shares the same and inevitable consequences. While it is true that it is an ill wind that blows no good, it is also true that what is one man's meat is another man's poison. To nature, matters of great importance and matters of little consequences are on an equal basis. The one is not favored above the other. It is the survival of the fittest and not the most desirable that survives. When conditions are favorable to the wild animals, they thrive by killing the other forms of life upon which they live. And when conditions are favorable to man, he kills and lives upon the forms of life which he considers exist solely for his pleasure and benefit. To nature, the germs of disease as a form of life are equally as important as the other forms of life that breathe and have their being. When conditions are favorable to the virus of influenza and pneumonia, we have what is known as an epidemic, and when conditions are favorable to the growth of cancer, it has what we might term a Roman holiday by destroying a third of our population. Germs of disease are merely invisible wild animals. They are forms of life that thrive upon the soil of the human body. Prayer has about as much effect upon them as it would have upon the hungry tiger ready to devour you. A bullet from a gun would be far more effective against the tiger, and knowledge of the nature of the germs of disease and the discovery of the methods of destroying them are comparable to the invention of the gun and its use against the ferocious animal. The knowledge of the one protects you against the inevitable enemies of destruction, while the invention of the gun protects you against being destroyed by the wild beasts. The germs of disease and the hungry tiger are both determined upon the same objective, your destruction, one by eating you in chunks and the other by minutely gnawing you away piecemeal. The results are identical. It is not necessary to moralize upon the difference, but this we know that in our present scheme of life, as Ingersoll so eloquently states, the hands that help are better far than lips that pray. Our bodies are as much meat for the diseased germs that eat us as the animal that furnishes the meat for our appetites. Or as Shakespeare puts it, in the sweetest bud, the eating canker dwells, in a broader and more comprehensive concept of disease. Shakespeare says, it is as if a God omnipotent is mustering in his clouds armies of pestilence, and they shall strike your children at unborn and unbegot. Who are you to say which one is the more favored in this scheme of life, the germs of disease or man? Which one is more important than the other, since the ends accomplished are the same? The life of the diseased germ came into existence by the same process as did the life of man. It is just as much as a part of nature as is the dimpled babe. If you cannot live without sunshine and water, neither can the germs of disease. It might well be that we are nothing more than disease germs in the environment in which we live. The same basic construction by which they live forms the same pattern upon which our life is built. To nature, the night is just as important as the day, and the life of the germ we call disease is as important as the life of the body upon which it feeds. It follows the same law of life. It is born, reproduces, and dies. There are forms of life that have by night that are equally as favored by nature as those which live day by day. And from here, I shall continue in the next episode again. Thank you.
For more videos, please subscribe to our Positive Atheism English Channel presented by Samaram channels, which has crossed more than 20 crore views. Please like, subscribe and share our videos, and for notification of our new videos, Please click the bell icon